Something really interesting happened. Mandalorian and Deadpool star Gina Carano was fired from The Mandalorian after her anti-Semitic, transphobic, and anti-mask statements on social media went viral. This of course polarized the public and caused outrage among many alt-right circles who automatically started talking about how the First Amendment was violated. But what about our freedom of speech? To that I say, fuck your hate speech, thinly dressed up as an undisputable right to say whatever you want without facing any repercussions. The First Amendment doesn't have anything to do with private companies nor the public. It merely prevents the government from making laws which regulate an establishment of religion or that would prohibit the free exercise of religion or abridge the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of assembly, or the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. First Amendment regulates only the way the federal and state governments address the before-mentioned issues. It doesn't exclude you from facing consequences of exercising your freedom of speech. So the First Amendment won't help your cries and your complaints that the irrevocable right for free speech has been denied to you. Because the right to free speech isn't an absolute right. The only irrevocable and absolute right is the right to life. That means that it's the only right that can't be in any circumstance denied to a person. When it comes to freedom of speech, it is a right recognized by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but it is by no means an absolute right. Freedom of speech is allowed up until a point where there is a serious or implied harm caused by it to other people, either individuals or a specific group of people. This justification of limiting the freedom of speech in some cases was theoretically covered in John Stuart Mill's book On Liberty, where he talked about something that is called the harm principle. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. So how does all this have anything to do with Gina Carano? Isn't she just another victim of cancel culture? Is the freedom of speech dead in the digital age? To answer all these questions, we need to take a closer look on what exactly happened in Gina's case. Gina Carano is well known for her controversial social media presence, and in the last couple of months, she took a lot of backlash for her tasteless commentary on Jewish community, mask mandates in California, trans rights, and conspiracy theories about the US elections. This all caused Lucasfilm to eventually release a statement on Wednesday stating that Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. So let's break down all the problematic statements from the actress. First, comparison between treatment of Jewish people in Nazi Germany and the treatment of political opponents in the modern-day USA. In her TikTok video, she stated, "Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Comparing the treatment of Trump supporters with the treatment that Jewish people had during the Holocaust is not only incredibly insensitive, but also undeniably false. The way that anti-Semitism always seems to sneak its way into the narrative of those who fall under the right-wing ideologies is not an accident, and Gina is not immune to that sentiment as well. Second, anti-mask statements on her Instagram post. Gina Carano shared a meme, which she later deleted of course, featuring an image of a person's face covered in masks that mocked California's coronavirus pandemic-related mandates. In a global pandemic where more than 2.3 million people worldwide died from the complications caused by the virus, being openly against the only thing that can protect people from catching the disease, apart from physical distancing and vaccination, is not a sentiment you should be proud of, nor is it something that you should expect people to ignore. 3. Mocking the use of pronouns by the non-binary and trans community. A few months ago, Gina was asked by the fans of the show whether she would add pronouns to her Twitter bio to show solidarity with the transgender community. This act of adding pronouns to a social media profile has become increasingly common among trans and non-binary users as a way to avoid being misgendered. Carano finally responded by adding the words boop boop beep to her bio, which is the sound that droids in Star Wars make. This didn't go according to plan, and when she was asked to explain what she meant, she tweeted, "Beep bop boop has zero to do with mocking trans people. In parentheses, love, and 100% to do with exposing the bullying mentality of the mob that has taken over the voices of many genuine causes. I want people to know that you can take hate with a smile, so boop you for misunderstanding." While I do agree that nobody should feel pressured or forced to add pronouns on their social media accounts, I do not agree with the way that she handled the situation. If she genuinely didn't know that her tweet could be considered offensive and disrespectful, it would make sense. But Carano admitted that her co-star Pedro Pascal had explained why pronouns matter. Carano later wrote, "I didn't know before, but I do now. I won't be putting them in my bio, but good for all people who choose to. I stand against bullying, especially the most vulnerable, and freedom to choose." After the tweet where she claimed to understand why her previous post might be viewed as insensitive, she didn't change the message. Unlike Gina, her co-star Pedro Pascal, whose sister just came out as trans, showed the right way to be respectful and how to be a real ally. 4. Voter fraud conspiracy. It is no secret that Gina Carano is a Trump supporter and a Republican, which wouldn't be an issue if she hadn't openly tweeted about how the elections were rigged, buying into the whole conspiracy of how the deep state is trying to make Trump lose the elections, which has been proven to be a hoax. She tweeted on November the 5th, "We need to clean up the election process so we are not left feeling the way that we do today. Put laws in places that protect us from voter fraud, investigate every state, film the counting, flush out the fake votes, require ID, make voter fraud end in 2020, fix the system." When the votes were eventually recounted and the new president of the United States has been elected, this hasn't stopped Gina from expressing the same sentiment. While expressing your opinion is valid, expressing empty claims and sharing conspiracy theories that have no proof might not be a good idea if you're a public person. So to sum it up, Gina Carano is not a victim of cancel culture, nor is the freedom of speech dead in the digital age. She is merely an example of how a public figure faced the consequences of her own actions. As an employee of a private company such as Lucasfilm, Gina was a spokesperson for that company, a public representative of company's values and ethics. If a private company has a specific set of guidelines which prevent its employees from expressing racist, homophobic, transphobic, and other problematic statements, if an employee decides not to comply, it is that company's right to find another spokesperson who will represent the company better. This is an issue in understanding the freedom of speech. While you have a right to exercise your freedom, you also have to face the consequences when that freedom of speech is abused and becomes harmful to others. As a public persona, your freedom of speech does not exclude you from all the responsibilities that come along with it. And that's the lesson that Gina Carano learned the hard way. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more similar content. I wish everybody a pleasant rest of the day, and until next time, bye-bye.